think. Living the dream. I appreciate you shooting me an email, and it was. I'm glad that you sort of announced yourself at City Council, because it gave me a good opportunity to get your contact information and everything like that. Sure. So good to connect. So basically, I'm going to be covering these campaigns all year, and I know it's kind of early, but I'm hoping to do kind of a I think it'll be for next week, but I'm not 100% sure yet. I think maybe it would be published next Wednesday, but not 100% sure. But basically kind of an overall, early look at what these city council races are starting to shape up as. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do every district in one story, because, obviously there's a lot of council members, but, and at large, obviously. But I think, District 5 is such a one to watch, right? Yeah. We're not having our incumbent, so it should be interesting. And there you go. So basically, I took a look at your website, and I've heard you speak at City Council, and had a couple questions for you. Are you good if I, take notes and then potentially quote you in the story?
Let's jump right in. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. Okay, great. I had my notes pulled up, and then okay. So, I did, read your bio and everything, but I'm wondering if you could tell me a bit about yourself and what inspired you to run for this seat.
Yeah. I thank you again for taking the time to talk with me here as we discuss the future of the city. I know it's a very, very bright future that we're getting ready to walk into, if in fact we do the work that needs to be done. I decided to run for city council amongst a number of reasons. The most just because of the challenges that we face here in the city. And it was apparent to me, as I've been following city council and local government for some years now, as is kind of a part of the work that I do as a community organizer, it just became apparent to me that all of the things, both the challenges that we are facing, as well as the elections that are upcoming, presented the perfect opportunity for me to step forward with the experience that I have to ensure that our community is given a prime position to thrive in the future. And I mean that when I say thrive, I mean that we have some specific challenges ahead as well as some specific opportunities. And I believe that it takes people like myself who have the ability to connect the dots and ensure that, we as everyday Detroiters have an opportunity to capitalize on the political shakeup that's about to take place and a lot of the issues that, quite frankly, are going to have to be addressed in the next few years. And so I decided to run because we look at the issue of overtaxation in the amount of $600 million, and we look at how that has impacted the quality of life and how that has impacted the trajectory of our cities and our neighborhoods. We also look at the current situation with our public school system, looking at the fact that not only is the school system in debt, which is really becoming a challenge for us in the issue of millages, but just also the overarching idea that the children that we are producing aren't bright, brilliant, and ready to work on average out of high school. And you combine that with the fact that we as a city government have made this decision for whatever reason to just keep our hands off of the educational system. And I believe that it's time for us to create a relationship that ensures the success of our children. Because if you look at, again, the challenges that we face in this generation, when you begin to talk about the fact that a lot of baby boomers are getting ready to retire, they're literally getting ready to matriculate out of the working class. And if we don't have in this particular city a generation of young people who can refurbish the tax base and become that next working class, then people like you and I imagine that we're maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years in the same age group. People like you and I are going to be stuck in the middle of that if we don't have children that can come up and simultaneously this influx of seniors that we have to protect. And so that's just a couple of issues. And we can talk about public transportation. We can talk about the state charter and how that should be realigned in a way that assists the everyday to shorter. And so just a lot of those different challenges that we're about to face. And when you combine that with the fact that you have our mayor who's running for governor, and you have, council persons who are, who are incumbents that are looking to get that promotion, this provides for us a great opportunity to really put a lot of things on the table and ensure that we get what we need moving forward.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Great. And I do have some policy follow-up questions, a couple things you mentioned.
Certainly.
But couple more questions about you first. So what neighborhood do you reside in?
So I live here I live downtown pretty much in the Lafayette area. Okay. So right off of East Jefferson. I'm actually looking at Canada out of my window, as well as this great Rensen, which is another another big, one of those big challenges that are about to, or opportunities, I'll say, that we're about to be looking at, so yeah, certainly.
Gotcha. Okay. So sorry. So off of, sorry, you don't have to tell me your address. I just, east of downtown?
No, I'd say, yeah, I'm in between downtown and Myers, the Myers on East Jefferson.
Yeah.
So right
okay.
there.
Yeah. I used to be in Lafayette Park. I used to be in,
well, why did you move? Where did you go? When are you coming back?
So I was in Lafayette Park, and then I moved to Jefferson Chalmers for about 3 years, and then now I just moved back to Midtown.
Okay, cool.
So I've stayed in Detroit. Since about 2017, 2019. Okay, so and then let's see. Could you tell me a bit about your relevant experience, whether that's work experience?
Certainly.
And you mentioned community organizing. Is that like full-time job, or is that something you do outside of work? Yeah, tell me a little bit about your experience.
And so I really start my experience with one of the greatest experiences that I've ever had is meeting my wife. Not just meeting her, but where and how we met. We met in Knoxville, Tennessee, when I was serving as a intern for the Children's Defense Fund. I worked for the Children's Defense Fund, which is a child advocacy summer enrichment reading program for inner city at-risk children, as well as, outside of the summer months, these interns, such as myself, obviously, we were also engaged in just trying to ensure that the legislation, and kind of keeping a pulse on the legislation that impacts our children, and making a concerted effort to raise our voices when we thought that legislation was, legislation wasn't going to ensure that our children had an opportunity to succeed. And that's kind of what we're looking at now. But more to my experience, an early childhood educator, and that's something that's very important to myself. My wife and I also founded the Heart Next Door Early Enrichment Center in 2019. And so that technically makes me a business owner. And so I know what it's like to jump through those regulatory hoops. And I know what it takes to get a business up and running, and as well as profitable. I'm also a licensed minister by vocation. I work at the Oasis of Hope Church. That's right behind Dutch Girl Donuts, right off of Woodward and 7 Mile. I also serve on the community engagement board there, Living Waters. And so that is where I do a lot of my community involvement work. Currently, one of the biggest projects that we are working on is Saving Greenfield Union, which is a project that is very important to me. It's a school that's right down the street from our church, and it is our understanding that they are being phased out, and next year they won't have first grade. And so we are taking a hands-on approach and doing everything that we can to save that school and ensure that a neighborhood school like that stays open. And so I'm involved in a number of things. I have an entrepreneurial spirit, but I'm also a licensed minister, and I'm employed at my church.
Okay, and the early childhood care center, is that still open?
No, it's not. It's not currently open anymore.
No. Okay. It opened in 2019. What was the reason for the closure?
Well, we just moved on from that. We've kind of followed our passions, and we've had the freedom to do so in that regard. And quite frankly, we started a family of our own, and so it was kind of a little bit difficult to manage the both of them, having new
Mm.
children as well as the child care center. And so we decided that we probably look forward to adopting later on in the future, but we just moved on from that endeavor because we started a wonderful family. I have a 3-year-old boy. His name is Rebels, and I have a 6-month-old little girl. Her name is Riel.
Oh yeah, I think they were at city council, right? With you
Yeah, that I try to bring
on
them
a
with me
couple of
whenever
things.
it's
Yeah,
feasible. Yeah, certainly.
yeah, gotcha. Um, okay, and then okay, so you talked about the race being wide open. I see there's at least 4 people who have filed to run in the race. How do you sort of differentiate yourself? When there's sort of a lot of new names coming into the fold here.
Certainly. Yeah, well, again, I believe that the differentiating factor between me and all of my opponents is pretty clear. And of course, I'm biased on that, but I say that because I believe that my experience gives me the insight that we need in order to see the challenges ahead. It appears, and maybe you're aware of this if you've covered these races, it appears as though there is a certain level of um, research and intentionality that it takes to govern here in city council. But what I believe that this is a race that allows us to go deeper and to go further. And I believe that one of the things that will set me apart from the other candidates is my willingness to use all of the resources at my disposal, all of my influence in an ethical way to ensure that we can create movement on the issues that have laid dormant for many years. When we begin to look at the land bank and we look at the fact that the MOU expired more than a year ago, that means that
Mm-hmm.
the issues that are most important to the people have not been moved in a real way. And I believe that we have to come in with a common sense and a no nonsense approach and begin to create movement and create the success that rebuilds the trust of our constituents. I think that is very important, and you'll see in my platform that I'm willing to go further. As I mentioned a moment ago, we need a relationship between our school district and the city. We need to ensure that we are taking an all hands on approach to improving the quality of our schools, because that is what we're going to need these children in the future. Okay, I didn't mention this, but I also briefly worked for the federal government during the 2010 census, and I was instrumental in assisting a community in showing that their population has grown. And so that is also very, very important. As you may know, I'm sure you do, we had an
Mm-hmm.
issue with the census numbers not too long ago. We need people
Yeah.
with the foresight and the understanding that if we can do things like win the census, then we can qualify for more government assistance and resources. And so I understand what it's going to take in order for us to be successful in the future. And quite frankly, I've got more to lose. I'm raising a young family in this city. And I believe that the political ideas that people have, they come from a place where people are not invested in the future. I was at a forum the other day and a gentleman was saying that, yes, he doesn't believe that we can do anything about the schools. Well, guess what? He was 80 years old. I'm sure his children aren't in the schools. And so we need people to be in city council that have a true investment, that have something to lose, who have families, who have businesses, who understand the culture, and someone, quite frankly, who believes that everyone belongs here. I'm one of those rare candidates that believes that there is room for everyone. There doesn't need to be this idea or this notion that certain people are evil or that big development is inherently bad and small businesses are inherently good. I have the steady hand and the sober mind that allows us to realize that everybody is a pivotal player in the city when we begin to talk about what makes the city work.
Mm. What do you think that the city could, reasonably do within the next couple of years to change the game on public transit?
I believe, and I was talking to a transit advocate the other day. I think we were in city council. I have the transit app on my phone. I use
Yeah.
I use public transportation as a necessity. particularly living in the downtown corridor. I'm walking distance from the Q line. I can catch the people mover without leaving my home. And so we've got to improve public transit, and we've got to do whatever it takes to make our contracts and the positions that we have here in the city more competitive. I believe that it is one of the missing links that exist in the city that keeps us from being top tier on all fronts. Transportation is a major, major issue. Obviously, hopefully, we'll have an opportunity to talk about my plan to solve the housing crisis here, not only in Detroit, but in the country. But I believe that, again, public transportation has to be a higher priority. And I think it's time, quite frankly, that we just put our money where our mouth is. If we believe that this is something that we should invest in, then we have to show that in the way that we legislate and how we allocate dollars toward those efforts.
Okay. So in terms of like concretely what you want to improve on public transit, more money, and anything else?
I would say
that you specifically want to see?
So I would say that we would most certainly need to increase the contracts that the DDOT drivers have to make them more competitive with Smart. I also believe that we could enlarge the footprint of our downtown space if we extend the people moving. Now, I know that this isn't, a regional transit that we're talking about. This is more so something that allows us to increase the footprint of the traffic that is going on downtown in a way that really just works for more areas that have not been claimed yet. And so what I'm saying specifically is that we can and should expand the people mover to Belle Isle. And then we can bring it back up, the 375 project that they're getting ready to take on, where they open up this space around the Wren Center. We can bring it back up through 375, connect it back to Greektown, and push it over to Corktown. And I believe that if we create this hub where people are able to get from the riverfront to Corktown, back down to the other side of Southwest where we also have riverfront, I believe that increases the potential of what we have here in the city at large. But moreover, I believe that we can and should open up a robust conversation about how we extend the public transportation beyond Detroit. Now, I've written 461. I've written, again, these public transportation lines, and we do see that the further out into the suburbs that you get, that regional transportation is very few and far between. And so we have to have those conversations with the other counties and really bridge that gap and understand, because if we're speaking beneath the surface, we know why people don't want to connect the cities. If you want to get into that, that's a real conversation that we've got to have, because again, regional transit is something that is going to connect us to other hubs in the area, and it really makes us a more competitive place when we begin to talk about other major cities in the country.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, all right, understood. And then, yeah, you mentioned affordable housing. I want to talk about that. And then I guess I just wanted to just kind of set expectations really quickly while I was thinking about it. So this initial story that I'm doing, hopefully for next week, it's going to be kind of an overview of the race. So I just, I want to learn about your platform for future coverage, but I'm just letting you know I won't be able to hit on every point in that story, and if you take a look at our website, you'll see we do, short form stories, which, has its pluses and negatives. But
okay.
I also have some other stories. I want to do that. I mean, it's going to be a long year.
Let me say this real quickly while I have you. One of the things that I'm very intentional about, because I'm a content creator myself, in one form or the other. I have a kid and whatnot. We do YouTube videos and things of that nature. One of the things that I want to be intentional about is amplifying the voices of local reporters. I think that it is imperative that we give you all a bigger platform. I think it helps us, quite frankly. But you all are let's just be clear about this. The place where people are getting their news are from people like you all. And so to the point that you were saying that we may not get a chance to touch on everything, I'm quite okay with that. But I want to use this opportunity to invite you to have some type of long form conversation, whether it's one-on-one or whether it's with other content creators or reporters that are here in the city, because I think that as we do two things, we can spread the message of our platform. But one of the things that I want to be intentional about
Mm-hmm.
this particular cycle, and I'll let you go on, move forward. I want to make sure
Yeah.
that we are ensuring as candidates that everyone is willing and they have to have a robust conversation about the policies. Because whenever we do the short form, which
Great.
is great, I think we get to kind of say, I want to fix crime, I want to make housing better. But as we do these long forms, if I have you over at the house, or if we meet up at a Starbucks and sit down for an hour or two, I think that will give us an opportunity. So I want to avail myself for that, because it is important that we begin to peel
Mm-hmm.
back the layers to ensure that we've studied these issues, and that we do have realistic common sense solutions. So again, if we don't get it all today, that's fine. Hopefully we'll get an opportunity to sit down in the near future.
Yeah, yeah. I completely agree, and I think the context and the nitty gritty on policies is so important. And my background is in business reporting for Creates Trade Business, so I'm used to writing those really long nitty gritty stories.
Yeah,
And when I came to Axios, it was a real adjustment because
surely,
Axios is quite short form. And I think both have a place. I think both are great
definitely.
because what I've found with the short form writing is that when I was writing these really long stories for Cranes,
Mm-hmm.
people would spend 10 seconds on average on these stories. They're not reading it anyway.
Yeah,
So I think the challenge is, and now I'm writing for a publication that's free as well, which is
yeah,
awesome. And so the thing is, how do you kind of understand it well enough yourself to deliver that context in a short form? Or I think what I kind of wanted to make sure I get clear is, this is not the only story I'll be doing. I'll be covering this whole year, this whole
certainly.
spring. And so, I think I'm not, I haven't fully formed this, but I really want to do a story about the relationship between the city and Detroit Public Schools, because you're not the first candidate to talk to me about how they want to significantly change that relationship.
Right.
And so, maybe we could get more into the policy nitty gritties on that story, or a different,
Certainly.
So I think there's a lot of opportunities, and I'm always willing to sit down and have a conversation, because, you do need to get into that context. It's also like, how do you deliver that information in a way that people do want to read it? And
Right.
so it's always this kind of push and pull that we're always thinking about,
Yeah.
in local
Yeah,
news.
certainly.
So
Yeah,
I appreciate you bringing that up, though.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. I could talk all day about it.
As could
But
I. Listen, I study these
um,
issues very deeply, and I think that is, again, to your point about what sets you apart. I, I have a, I have the temperament, the patience, and quite frankly, the desire to discuss these issues at great length, because what you quickly see, and you've been
mhm,
covering this city, you know this, there are 5 or 6 or 7 stereotypes that shut conversations down. And I believe that if we are to be successful in the future, the places that were dead ends for the previous administrations have to be our starting points. And so if you've been sitting in city council, and certainly you have, that's where we met, you hear people all the time say, we
mhm,
can't do this or that, which is common sense, but because of the state charter, or because of this, or because of that,
mhm,
I think it's
mhm.
time that we open up every conversation, and we kick the tires on why we don't have a relationship with the school district, on why the housing crisis, how did we get here? Are we and so again, I don't, I think it's important for us to do that, because that is really, I mean, the
Yeah,
devil's in the details. I think the devil's in the details, and forcing that conversation really will show a great difference.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very interesting. Appreciate that. Um, okay, and then the last thing I wanted to ask you about, and then I'll ask you if you have anything you want to add
Certainly.
at the end. But you mentioned affordable housing, and I think that's an area where there is a great example of this thing you mentioned about we kind of say we can't do this
Right.
because there's all this controversy about the area median income and how it
Hmm.
restricts how affordable housing can be,
Surely.
et cetera, et cetera. And and I have heard some other candidates talk about ways around that, but it's a federal reality of like how they measure AMI. But anyway, so on affordable housing, what would you want to do differently than what the city's doing now?
I think that we've done a great job with affordable housing. I think we've done such a great job that it's time to stop affordable housing. I think we need to reopen the opportunity for people to have starter homes. And that's kind of one of the foundations of my platform is ensuring that we are making the smart ask, because we've got a lot of affordable housing, or the theory of affordable housing, and we can obviously go and talk about this for quite some time. What is affordable? That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, yeah,
But what we truly need
yeah.
is an opportunity to have some type of ownership. That's what creates pride. That's what creates this sense that we need to protect and cultivate the space that we occupy when people have ownership. And so I believe that this 375 project is a major opportunity for us to find those type of investors who can invest in alternative living opportunities. And so if you've been following the 375 project, and they're getting ready to try to fix Black Bottom and reconnect these communities, well, inside of one of the proposed, inside of the plan that they have for this new, this unclaimed, I believe it is 30 square miles or whatever the case may be, right here in this downtown area, or 40 acres, whatever have you. They're saying that we can have an opportunity for alternative living styles. And so I believe that verbiage gives us an opportunity to embark upon a series of housing that is allowed to move quicker because of the deregulative, because of us deregulating. And so let me just kind of just cut through the noise here. If we can
Mhm.
have starter homes that pop up in the middle of this development, I believe that we can provide a model for people that shows that these homes can be affordable, but you have to do it through deregulation. We have to deregulate. We know that it takes too long to get a business up and running in the city, and it takes too long, and you have to jump through too many hoops to get your house up to code. And so, if we can reduce that and find different types of living, we've heard of these shipping container homes. And if you're familiar with that, with those type of living arrangements, you know that you can get a starter home for about $120,000, and you don't really have to cut any corners. There are ways for us to give people an opportunity to have equity in the places that they occupy, and I believe that the main way to
Mhm.
do that is through deregulation and allowing these different types of housing to come forth within the development that we see here on the books.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. One second here. Okay, and so deregulation in terms, I feel like so in terms of businesses, starting up a business, I know what you mean, but in terms of deregulation, in terms of single family home development, is another thing you're mentioning.
Yes.
Okay, and like deregulating single family home development in what way?
So I think when you begin to talk about single family homes, then you go right back into the land bank. And I'm not sure how
Yeah.
familiar you are with the process of getting and keeping a home from the land bank. But again, it's very, very difficult to talk about housing in the city of Detroit without discussing the elephant that's sitting on your couch. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that brings us back to the age old discussion. Is it time for the land bank to I mean, but they have made home ownership more complicated. I think we can agree that and agree to that, and I understand that you are to your position on this call is an unbiased reporter. But I think even Stevie
Yeah.
Wonder can see that the land bank has caused more problems than solutions. But if we are able to control these homes and control the land and have, I think this, long story short, deregulation is a matter of getting the land bank out of the city. Getting the land bank out of the city, allowing us the opportunity to see exactly what it is and how we can move forward in getting these houses developed. A lot of people are just waiting for permits. A lot of people are just waiting for the okay. A lot of people are just waiting in the backlog and trying to see when their number is going to be called. And so, you're solving the housing
Mhm.
crisis, as you may see in California, is simply a matter of deregulating and allowing people to just get back to work. And I think that's a large part of what I'm talking about when we really begin to talk about solving
Mhm.
housing and allowing people to just have starter homes.
Yes. Okay. One second here. Okay, and Is there anything else that acknowledging that there's, I know that we can't get into everything
Yeah,
here
certainly.
that I, saw on your Thoughts on Money website, but is there any final thing that we didn't talk about or that you want to expand on that you want to mention before I let you go?
Well, I'll mention that I'm going to be preaching here at my church this Sunday, and I'll also be making the formal announcement for my candidacy, even though I've obviously been saying that quite some time in the public space, but
Hmm.
I'm going to be preaching on this Sunday, and so I'm inviting the public out to that. But I will just ask you this, just
Yeah.
I am genuinely a person who wants the knowledge, and I believe that we're constantly learning and understanding. And you've covered this city for some time, I imagine, and I'll encourage you to be biased on this particular issue. What is it? What do you want to see in the next city council persons? What do you believe? What type of qualities do you believe are really quintessential when you begin to talk about, because when we study the issues and when we listen to both sides, we kind of can find that common ground. And so sometimes talking to a journalist that is
Mm.
fair and unbiased really can give you, the most well-rounded answer. What type of council people do you think we need moving forward?
That's a good question. So I don't think I can answer it in a biased way, just because that's not something I'm really able to do in the public sphere.
No
You know what
worries.
I mean?
No worries.
But I would say as a reporter who, I also like live in the city. I have opinions,
Right.
but I also, I haven't lived in the city that long
Mm-hmm.
compared to, so many people who are working on policy.
Right.
So I just kind of want to acknowledge those things. But in terms of being a reporter and watching and analyzing all of this, I mean, I think like something that I wrote about before at Cranes and that I continue to think about is just how, uh, how does the city go from a place that's trying to build out its manufacturing job force to a city that's trying more intentionally to create job pathways for jobs that have like accessible middle income opportunities.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of projections from U of M about how the city, is going to make a lot of gains in relatively low wage jobs over the
Mm-hmm.
next 30 years, 20 years, whatever. But the gains for especially accessible middle income
Yeah.
jobs that can help, people become part of the middle class, like that is not something that we're seeing enough growth in nearly at all. And I think that's a really hard thing to solve. And it has to do with DPSCD. It has to do with the mayor. It has to do with city council. It has to do with
It's not hard at
Detroit at
all.
work. Like,
It's
you
not.
don't think it's
Well, I
hard?
don't think it's hard because here's the thing: if the advocates advocate, the problems get solved. That's the thing. We've heard that city council doesn't have power. We've heard that, there's this song and dance that the politicians do, and they're all on the same side, no matter what they say. But here's the thing: if we get back to the basics and take a result-based approach to the problems that we face, I think the answers are the proof is in the pudding. What was happening in our
Mm-hmm.
communities when our children could go to high school, and in high school they could learn how to weld, and in high school they could learn how to do
Mm-hmm.
HVAC, and in high school they could learn how to do roofing, right? What happened when we brought the trades back to our school? The quick answer to your solution, and maybe I am an oversimplifier in this regard, bringing the trades back to our schools and also giving our children a better image of themselves. It's the simple things. What happens in the suburbs? You have good hospitals, you have fresh food, you have young children that have an opportunity to participate in extracurricular activities, fine arts programs. You have a community policing, right? Those are the things that happen in thriving societies, and that's all we've got to do is take the same approach that other people have taken. Early engagement with our children and ensuring that they are ready to work whenever they get out of high school. That's what we have to do.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Well, I look forward to talking about that more. And I have one last question for you off the record.
Please.
I'm, not taking notes if you don't mind. I mean, you don't have to answer it, but who do you think is going to be the next mayor?
Yeah, well, it's, it's whoever I support is going to be the next mayor. whoever I support is going to be the next mayor. And I'm in District 5, and I'm leaning towards, very heavily, quite frankly, towards Miss Sheffield. Um, but we just have to hear more about the policies. We just have to hear more about the plan.
Yeah.
And I think that after we looked at the 2024 election, I believe that the winner should be the person that avails themselves the most to the most rigorous debate. As we saw, and I don't know who you are
Mm.
with on the left or the right when we begin to talk about the federal election, but I think it's pretty fair to acknowledge that one side was willing to have the conversation, you're right, the unedited conversation. They were willing to go more places and really just field more of these opposing views, right? And so I believe that that's what it should take moving forward. Who can come out and defend their positions and explain and articulate their plan and
Mm.
how they're going to get there? That's the person who wants it, who's going to get it. Certainly, that's my approach. And that's why, again, I want to sit down with you for an hour or two, because if we do that, then that sets the standard, right? The next council person can't sit down for 30 minutes. It won't make sense. But we've got to raise that standard. We've got to have those robust discussions. We've got to talk about why the relationship between the Muslim community and our Black community is the way that it is. We've got to talk about the disconnect and why Black people don't feel like they should be supporting the movement that's going on at the border, or that we've got to have those conversations in a way that ensures that we are all being listened to, and that gives proper respect to the fact that we all understand what's going on. And so I'm excited, because I know that one of the things I'm going to do is just be out there as much as I possibly can and try to
Mm-hmm.
create that standard that says, if you want to run for office in Detroit, whether you're running for mayor or city council, you're going to have to get out there. You're going to have to do some street interviews. You're going to have to do some long form interviews and really, really get into the nitty gritty of your policies. And so whoever wants it the most is who should get it.
Mm. Gotcha. Yeah. 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 I mean, being out there is really, the best simple thing you can do, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's
Great.
talk again
Okay.
soon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
let's
you.
do this
Thank you so
again.
much. Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah. Feel free to reach out. This is my number, and I try to be at city council, but not every week, but I try to. And yeah, I'll reach out if I have any sort of follow-up questions for the story next week. But like I said, it won't be the last. There's lots more to come. I'm thinking about the school system. I'm thinking about the role of religion in the election and lots of other stuff. So,
well, I'll say this before I let you go.
Yeah.
We are going to,
Mm.
before and after city council, we are going to make sure that you all have more of a voice. I was listening to an interview that Miss Mary Sheffield did with a content creator who wasn't from the city, and they were sitting in the city council chambers, and it was a nice setup, and and it was very, very nice. You all deserve those opportunities. There's nothing negative against Miss Sheffield or the content creator. I love them both, right? And there was great content, whatever the case may be. But I want to make sure that you all are sitting at that table moving forward, and so I definitely look forward to having these conversations with you and Malachi and Sam, and really just making sure that you guys who are in the city are telling the story, because I believe you can tell it in the most accurate way. So thank you so much for what you do.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yep, always trying to tell things accurately. So appreciate that. All right, I'll let you get back to your rest of your Wednesday. But yeah, thanks for the time.
All right, talk to you
soon.
soon.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks again.
Okay. Yep, bye.
All righty, good people. Listen, that was another interview from Miss Annalise Frank from Axios. She's a reporter here in the city of Detroit. We're talking about what the future is going to look like as a result of the work that we're about to do. I don't want to talk about what the future is going to look like if we don't do anything, because it's going to be sad. It's going to be scary. It's going to be dark. But if we get to work, if we build on common ground, if we come together and focus on the things that we agree on, and we approach these conversations and these discussions in a robust way that ensures we're all acting in good faith, I do believe that the sky is the limit. I truly, truly believe that. And so I'm open to having these conversations in a more robust way, discussing the policies, discussing the how-to, and getting back to owning our narrative and turning our narrative in a way that allows us to be painted in the likeness that we believe we have. We believe we have brilliant children. We believe that we have a great opportunity to solve the housing crisis. We believe that we have a great next generation of working class citizens that will grow up to be husbands and wives and family members in this space. If we do the work and ensure that they have a foundation of love and respect and fairness and justice to get started in. If we can provide that for our children, if we can protect our seniors, then certainly our future is bright, and that's why I'm stepping forward. So thank you so much. If you want more information about my platform or how to get in touch with me, or if you want to sit down and do a long form interview with me or some content, I'd love to do it. Just reach out at WhitneyClarke4Detroit.com. Again, that is WhitneyClarke4Detroit.com. Now, you can also become a volunteer or you can donate at WhitneyClarke4Detroit.com. I thank you so much for your support. I know that together we're going to spread the message of what's about to take place in a great American city, the city of Detroit, Michigan. Again, my name is Whitney Clarke. I'm a candidate for city council here, district number 5 in the great city of Detroit, Michigan.